I'm Chloé Williams. I'm a writer located in Brooklyn, New York. You'll know that when the subway goes by. I went to Hunter College where I studied creative writing and I minored in journalism. And now I have like my little corner of the internet for Chloe and Letters. I do TikTok and Instagram and Substack.
Tell us a little bit more about what it's like being a writer on this new platform like TikTok.
I think one of the really amazing things about TikTok is it doesn't really require your followers to interact with it for you to get traction. So it's really nice to like, in a sense of building an audience. So I've been able to kind of accumulate followers that I might not have already because, other platforms like Instagram, for example, when's the last time you discovered someone new on Instagram, like in Instagram? That was like kind of like a pro TikTok thing. So it's really amazing to get to kind of be like really close and like in there in TikTok because you see all the comments and kind of like following trends and like just being like, I feel like I had the opportunity to be more open and getting to say like, one post is, here's a poem I wrote. It's very sentimental. It's very meaningful to me. And then another post is, like me doing some like stupid TikTok trends. Like, yeah, I can be, this very sentimental person, but also like I'm a real life person. And I think that makes people want to read your work in the first place if they have like a sort of investment and feel close to you. So that's like a kind of jumbled up answer of saying, I feel like I reach more people this way. It's some way, like I said. um, but I'm able to, you know, send out my work and just like hope these random people or like the right people find it. And that's been really amazing.
I love that. Um, how would you describe yourself as a writer?
I think my writing process I feel is much like very much so an editor like as I go. So I don't have a lot of drafts. I tend to like really kind of do a lot of the work in my head and then write the stuff down. And I'm also very much like I have to write quick. If I think or if I'm sitting for too long, I tend to write something that's not necessarily honest, and I go back and I have to delete it and start over. So I'm like a writer who's like kind of away from her desk a lot of the time. It's when she gets her ideas, and I can't sit at my desk for like an hour, 2 hours, and like write this most amazing piece. Like I have to leave my house or wherever I am and just like get out of my own way. Um, and I think my style is very lyrical, and I kind of have an associative sort of way of writing where my paragraphs, when you're reading them, I think they kind of make sense, but it's also a little bit all over the place. And I think, like I said, my writing process is sort of just this sort of, kind of difficult game of like trying to write fast, but also trying to write something good.
Okay, like so with your writing, do you feel like you have this very, very distinct signature or rhythm, like how some singers and songwriters have that distinct boom or that distinct harmony? Do you feel like you have that signature or essence in your writing?
I think it's interesting about like style in the sense like I like once described it as like if someone asked you like what your house smelled like, you wouldn't really be able to tell them because it just smells like your house, like you have no idea, but someone else could tell you. So I think I think over time, like in some ways, see the influences of all the different writers that I grew up loving and all the people I've studied under and that sense. So I think I'm kind of like an in between. I think I'm still curating the voice, but I also think it's very much so mine. Like I said, it's very lyrical and you know, I think it's very romantic. I'm like very much so romantic. I romanticize everything. So I think it kind of follows that sort of like influence of the writers I've read, but also like made it my own at this point. My style definitely is like at least to me, and like as far as other people go, like I said, teachers, I think it has a pretty distinct voice to it.
So you touched on this a little bit, but who are your literary influences, or do your influences for your writing go beyond just past authors and writers?
Ooh, yeah, I think literary wise, when I was in high school, like, and I didn't want to pay attention in my history class, I started reading like in the back of my textbook, there was Walt Whitman and Emily Dickinson poems. So I really, really loved them from the beginning. And Walt Whitman especially, because my dad had a copy of Leaves of Grass that my mom gave him for Christmas, and I really loved like flipping through that. I also, like I said, really love Lemony Snicket, just in such a strange way. There's this love letter that Lemony Snicket wrote, in the character of Lemony Snicket, to Beatrice Baudelaire from Series of Unfortunate Events, and it's like the most romantic thing I've ever read, and so I really love him. I've read Cheryl Strayed, Jamaica Kincaid, um, and of course Joan Didion. And like as far as other influences, I really love Wes Anderson films, and
Oh my gosh, yes.
it's such an interesting thing because in a sense like his films, like a lot of things happen, but at the same time nothing really goes on. So I'm really influenced by that. Honestly, I love any movie that's about journalism, like the one that was like The Post, or there's one about Spotlight, and those films I really love. They kind of just are like, yeah, like writing. And I like documentaries about, like Joan Didion has a documentary, The Center Won't Hold. And almost anytime I have writer's block, I go and watch that because it's like, has her voice reading some of her work, and women who moved to New York City to be writers, like who doesn't love Joan Didion? So those like are big influences for me. Like I said, I'm a really big movie person. I'm not so much TV. I don't like TV, but movies are definitely my thing. So yeah.
How do you remain true and authentic to yourself through your art and through your profession? Because I know it's very easy to feel the need to conform based on others, but how do you really stay true to yourself?
I really try to look at what other writers that I admire do, like Haley Nahman, I believe that's her last name. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. She used to write for Man Repeller, and now she has her own newsletter, Navy Baby. And I feel like when you think about like social media now, and again, sorry for the segue. When you think about like social media now, it's like very much like influencer culture. So you have like, I got an email today of like someone being like, we've been watching you grow and we're so proud of you. Like, would you please promote like a VPN thing? Like, we'll give you 30% off. And I'm like, that's not like, that's just like not what I see people doing. That's just not the kind of person they want to be,
Yeah.
which is in a sense, like not necessarily writing, but like the person I am like online is very much, I think, a very honest portrayal. Like I know some people are like, Instagram's so fake, it's so fake, but like in many instances, like I'm really trying to say like, this is who I am. And especially if you're doing something as like vulnerable as writing, like why would I be fake on social media to begin with? When I'm writing, if I can't find the words, I can tell when I'm lying. Like I can tell when I'm really just trying to get this work out and I can't figure out what I want to say. Like I'll write like paragraphs and paragraphs. And I think one thing that's really helped me stay true is I'm not afraid or opposed to just like either starting over or like wiping out a whole paragraph. Like I said, if I'm really struggling to get a piece, like I usually like I can't sit at my desk for like 2 or 3 hours and write and just like bang something out. Usually I need to like leave the apartment and go and walk and kind of give myself permission not to think about what I'm working on, because then that's when most of my stuff comes. So I try to create a space where I'm both working with what I have. So I have a separate document where I put anything that I cut out of a piece that I can go back to later if I think, I think that was actually, more true than not. But also like a blank document where when the right thing comes, like it can come. And I also try to be honest in the sense like I'm only 24, and I think I try to be honest in the sense of saying like I don't know, like I think I really admire other writers who will say like I don't know if this was the right thing to do. I don't know if this is what they were thinking, but this is what it felt like. So I really just try to like sit with myself and look at what I'm saying and stick with my gut and do stuff that makes me feel good. Saying like it's much more powerful to set boundaries and be true to yourself and say no. So
I absolutely adore that. I adore how you are so clearly trying to normalize adapting and authentic and true and vulnerable writing habits that allow people to, one, not feel like they're stuck and fixated on a certain piece, that they are allowed to grow and expand and adapt. And honestly, that's just like one of the reasons why I was so compelled by your work. Like, I've heard of it, I've read it, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I found out it was you. And I was kind of freaking out a little bit because I adore the vulnerability you share in these works because it makes me feel seen. And I love how that just like impacts me. And that kind of leads me to my next question about what impact do you hope to make with your writing?
I've like said this like I think from the beginning, like when I was like way back, because I've been writing since middle school. So like it's crazy. Like some people like it's interesting. Like I always thought like you see like these like child prodigies and you're like, I'm like, oh, I was never like that. But it's true. I've been writing since middle school. But one of the things that always was a dream of mine is when you read something in a book and it just like speaks to you so deeply and you're like, that's exactly what I wanted to say but couldn't find. That's sort of the impact I want. Like, connecting to art, like a lot of people who connect to art, they're so lonely and just there's so they feel like there's like I've described it for myself as like there feels like almost like a distance between me and the world. Like I feel like I can't even be like people can't even see me in public. So to be able to kind of be like a rope or a tether to this what's going on right now and saying, this is what it feels like to be lonely, or this is what it like those just strange things that are part of like growing up. And I really hope I can like offer some or my readers just a place where they feel comfortable and seen and they feel that they can be authentic. I think that's really a big thing for me is I would never want to make anyone feel, whether in person or on my website or in my Substack or whatever, feel like they can't be themselves. And that's like genuinely like like I said, one of the most important things to me. So getting to write something that makes people feel like, yes, that's how I feel connected to you is very important to me, especially like also because I have been perpetually lonely my whole life. And now I have like a way of dealing with it. As I get older, I can really tackle it. But like I remember being so young and just feeling so alone, and it was so hard. And like and I wasn't really reading that much then, so like I felt even extra alone because I didn't have any art to connect to. So being like on places where younger people are, like TikTok and Instagram, I feel like is like a helping hand almost to say like, hey, like how you're feeling is real and it's okay to feel that way. And so I never like I always like want to offer a place, especially for younger people. I think sometimes you feel like to be a writer, you have to be much older, you have to like have like a certain degree or whatever. I want people to know that wherever you are in life and however you're feeling is valid, and it's scary and everything is going to be fine. So that's really like I hope to offer like a sort of safe haven for young people who feel like time's running out almost.
I I love this aura and this like essence you are giving off of like this like true vulnerability and acceptance and like this you just like are such a comfort to whoever like reads your work. Honestly, it's like amazing, and like you're doing the same thing like here as like I'm talking to you, which is just
Thank you.
so cool. um More about what it's like to be a writer. What would you consider to be the toughest, the easiest, and the most rewarding part of being a writer? This is like a three-part question. You don't have to wrap it up into a bundle unless you really, really want to. But yeah.
I think the most rewarding is meeting with people, and although like our experiences feel like our own, but finding out like in some ways they're universal. um I like everybody has their own like baggage that they bring to life, and to know that in some sense, like although something really bad things have happened to me and happened to others, like that I feel vulnerable and brave enough to share that with people and to get such loving comments and so much comfort back is very rewarding. It's like a nice reminder that like bad things happen, but not the world isn't mean. And the toughest, the toughest, I think the toughest is the opposite of that. You have people saying like, well, it's like not that deep, and like that's not what happened, or like you guys are so whatever. Like I had someone like say, you guys are just trying to post your camera roll to TikTok, And I'm like, believe me, if I wanted to, I would. I don't need any excuse to post my camera roll. I'm a nonfiction writer. I'm obsessed with myself. But like, just because you don't see it one way means that's how life is. I'm very open to other people's perspectives. I think that's like when you're a writer, you have to be, especially writing nonfiction and memoir. When I'm writing about people in different scenes, I'm considering how they feel, like, because you have to offer a certain sense of compassion to the different people that are going on, that are in your work, because everybody is human. And if you were to write, a memoir where someone was just like the worst person in the world, obviously this is like a tentative rule. There's definitely awful people, but if you were to write, a character that was just like so like straight up awful and mean, and like there was no gray moral, no good, no bad, or just bad, people wouldn't believe you. And so that really taught me a lot about, or to step in other people's shoes. So when people immediately kind of brush me off as like this dramatic, romantic, like I'm romanticizing main character energy, whatever stuff, that's really hurtful, because I'm like, I'm not lying. I'm actually doing the opposite. I'm trying really hard not to lie. And just because you don't see it this way doesn't mean it's not true. And maybe it's not fact. I can't say that that's how all of life is, but it's true. It's my truth. Okay. Easiest, I think, is writing about people I love. I love writing about everyday life, and I don't have like a ton of money. I haven't traveled a lot. I've pretty much stayed on the East Coast my whole life. I don't go out. I'm not like one New York City TikToker out at these bars and doing these crazy things. So I write from these very mundane experiences, but it's so easy and so rewarding, because I love like genuinely being alive. And I think just like, even just like waking up and laying in bed is like I write about it often in poetry, the like comforts of being in bed. So I really like enjoy capturing. I think it's easy in a sense, like, because the longer I write, the more notes I take on the people that I see around, that I can really capture their essence. And I really love memorializing people I really love, and like knowing that they exist now in some essence of forever. So that's probably the easiest part.
And knowing they exist now in an essence of forever. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That is just beautiful, just like right there. Yeah, honestly, that makes me feel a certain type of way about like people I love, and making sure that they know that they are loved.
Yeah.
Um, do you feel like your newsletter allotted you a certain type of freedom with your work and having a space for that? Or was it just a stride you feel like you had to make?
Hmm. I feel it was both in a sense. I think I had to do this, because taking that step of like doing the newsletter, it was like, is this feeling eventually you have to decide that you're going to get it yourself. And whether that's applying for a job or just starting like a newsletter and saying, I'm a writer, I'm going to take myself seriously, then so be it. So I think I had to do it, in some sense, in order to really take myself seriously. But I also think it opens doors in a sense that I was allowed to grow and learn. I set that out from the beginning. I said, this might not be a very profound newsletter. It might not be the most amazing thing. I might also not have a lot to say each month as it comes, but I want to do this, and I want to like try, and I want to figure it out. I think it's given me a way to love writing. Because I made the newsletter specifically so that, like, because I struggle with my mental health, I have depression. So when I am having a depressive episode, it's very difficult for me to be creative. So I wanted to give myself a space where I could do what I wanted to do. I could be a writer, and I could have things that I love and look forward to that wouldn't take it out of me to write. But also like a place where I was, taking myself seriously. And I think, there's not a lot of opportunities for writers in the publishing world, like magazines. They have a very specific thing they want, and like each word counts. And I like that this is like, I'm setting this goal, and this is what I want to do. And if I get there, then great. And if I don't have as much to say as I want, then that's fine too.
What would you say are the pros and cons of being freelance?
The pros are, you have, in some essence, creative control, you're your own editor and your own writer. So when I post, I can decide, hey, like this is all I want to say on a subject that is very painful to write about, but I want to write, like when I wrote about grief, I think, or forgiveness. When I wrote about forgiveness, I give a very vague intro because I didn't want to go into the details or the specifics. And like that's like a powerful thing to say, like this is all I'm going to say and this is all I am mentally able to do, and I hope you'll respect me for sharing at least this much with you. I promise you'll get us like a well-rounded ending. And then there's a pro in a sense that you're putting your name out there and you're building your own image, not like someone else's. You're not, like I said, how some magazines, they have brand, like you're building your own. And I hate to be like the Chloé Letters brand, but like the sense how we talked about being authentic. There's a way that you can be authentic to yourself, which is, I think, is a pro. The cons are it's difficult. You have to be really willing to stick to deadlines, and you have to, in some ways, you have to say, you know, maybe today you're not doing so great, but tomorrow you really, really have to bite the bullet and you have to, you know, create this piece. You're getting paid for it. And whether or not it's your favorite thing isn't really the issue. Like you just like obviously make something you're proud of, but you have to turn something in. And so it can be difficult, especially if you're making something that you're just like not like, there's newsletters of mine that I'm like, this isn't my best, but like I have a deadline and I've made a commitment to this and I'm going to meet this commitment and give people this. And like I said, I set out from the beginning and said maybe they won't be the best newsletters, but I'm going to set out and just try to do it in general. And I think too, it's difficult. Like I have been hired to write for different places at this point, but it's also like when you first start, like I would say I'm still really in the early stages of my career. You know, not a lot of people know me, not a lot of people, or a lot of people know me, but not a lot of people are hiring me. And so you have to really network and you have to just be your own advocate, which can be a pro or a con. Like there's this, I had a teacher, like I asked them when class ended, like what's something that you wish you knew when you were finishing your undergrad? And they said, you can do this, you can write. Absolutely, it's possible. You can make a living off of it, but you have to be sure it's really what you want to do. You have to sit down eventually and say, is this what I'm trying to do? And I think that's kind of scary, but it's true. After that class, I was like, is this what I want to do? And it's like, yes, absolutely. I would do this for three people, let alone, 30,000 on TikTok or 2,000, whatever, on Instagram.
Well, thank you for that. One question before our closing, Chloe and Letters, where did the inspiration for that name and that brand really come from?
So when I first began, and my sister, like someone asked me this actually on TikTok, and my sister was like giving me shit because I didn't like say how she helped me come up with the idea. So before I forget, Ava, my sister, helped me come up with this idea. But I had a website that preceded Chloe and Letters, and that I have now, and I was just like posting for my like a blog, but it was very laissez-faire. Like I was really not updating it as regularly, and it was difficult. But basically, all my friends followed it. So like when I would post something, all my friends would go and look at it. Shout out to them; they're my original fans. But I would write "Dear Reader," and then I would end with "Love always, Chloe." That's how everything began and ended. Like whether it was like the front homepage or like a piece that I wrote. So it was really basically my life in letters, because I was like offering like kind of like a newsletter that I have now, like esque type thing of like, here's something that happened to me today and this is what I think about it. Very bloggy. So like I said, it was my life in letters, so Chloe and Letters.
I like it. I really, really do.
Yes, thank you.
Any last minute advice to teen writers or writers in general across the globe?
I think whether or not this is your life and you want to do it and you want to be like me, or you want to, sit in your room and journal, do it. I think there is no harm in doing something creative, whether that be for yourself or for an audience. or whether the audience is big or small. I think creative outlets are so important, and there's a point of like, don't don't at this point worry if you're good or not. Do not think like, how can I, make this really good, like can this like whatever, blah blah blah. Worry, I think, just be honest. That's like, whether that comes out like the most poetic thing you've ever written, or whether or not, it's like cliche, it's full of cliches, and like you're not super proud of it. I think any creative endeavor that you do, whether it be writing or singing or music or whatever, is good for you to do. And I think it's important that you do something just because you like to do it, without any worries of monetizing, of the future, whether you want to go big or go home. um, Take reign in that, like, just as that desire to be creative, and be totally okay with however awful or bad or good it is.
Oh my gosh. Love that. Oh my gosh, you are such like a wordsmith, hence being a writer. I actually lied. There's one more question that I've asked every single person that we've asked to be interviewed, and it is, if you could be a dessert, which dessert would you be and why? And I'm talking, I need flavors, I need to be able to see it, taste it, touch it, feel it. So be very descriptive.
Okay. Let's see. I don't have a sweet tooth, so this is going to be a real test.
Ooh.
I think the first thing that came to mind is creme brulee. Okay. Because that, like, kind of, even though I'm a writer, I can also be kind of, I can be kind of like closed off sometimes. So the idea of like breaking that shell, that like sugary top that's like all, tanned and just like absolutely delectable, crunchy, and like that really soft, gooey inside. I think that's kind of like my writing. You start with this newsletter that's like, here's some random anecdote at the beginning, but the real stuff is underneath. And although the beginning anecdote is sweet, the stuff that's underneath it is even better.
Oh my gosh. Yay. Do you want to shout out your socials or any of your information?
Yeah. Across the board, I'm Chloe in letters. So Instagram, TikTok, and my website, and my Substack. So you can find me anywhere. If you Google Chloe in letters, I'm sure I'll pop up somewhere on my little corner of the internet.
Well, I just want to say thank you for being interviewed and being vulnerable and being available to be open. And that openness is just so precious. And I know that I appreciate it. I know that hashtag Teen Writers Project appreciates it. All our viewers appreciate it. And just once again, thank you for agreeing to this. You are such a beautiful soul and a beautiful writer, and the essence you carry is just absolutely priceless. So I hope you have a good night.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so nice meeting you. I'll see you on Instagram.
Okay, I'll see you later. Bye.